The music box on my dresser was playing by itself. I sat up in the dark bedroom, heart hammering. That lullaby. I knew that lullaby. My mother used to wind that music box every night before bed, back when I was 7. Back before the fire that killed her. Back before it burned to ash 13 years ago. I turned on the lamp with shaking hands. The music box sat there, small and wooden with faded paint. The lid was open, the mechanism turning, playing that haunting melody I hadn't heard since childhood. I'd arrived at Grandma's house 6 hours ago. This room had been empty then. I'd unpacked my single duffel bag, collapsed on the bed, exhausted from the 2-hour drive. There'd been nothing on that dresser. So where did this come from? I got out of bed slowly. The music box sat there, innocent and impossible. I reached out to touch it. Ice cold. Not just cold, freezing. Like it had been sitting outside in the December snow for hours. Frost clung to the wood, delicate crystals catching the lamplight. My finger burned where it touched the surface. But even as I held my hand there, it started to warm. The frost melted, running down the sides in tiny rivulets. Within seconds it felt normal. Room temperature. The music stopped. In the silence, I heard it. A whisper so quiet I almost missed it. Even when it's dark, I'm here. My mother's voice, her words, the phrase she said every night after tucking me in. The temperature in the room dropped. My breath came out in a thick cloud. The shadows in the corners seemed to deepen, to move. And I felt it, the absolute certainty that someone was standing right behind me. I spun around. No one, just empty space and darkness. But I could smell it now. Lavender and vanilla. My mother's perfume. A scent I hadn't smelled in 13 years. I backed away and got into bed, pulling the covers up like I was 7 years old again. Like blankets could protect me from the things that moved in the dark. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Look, I know how this sounds. Girl shows up at her grandmother's house and immediately starts seeing things, hearing voices, smelling perfume that isn't there. Here's the thing. 3 days ago, I was in a hospital bed after doing something stupid. Something that had scared everyone, including me. They'd kept me for a few days, asked a lot of questions I couldn't answer, then released me to Grandma's care with a bottle of pills and instructions to take time away from school. So yeah, maybe I was losing it. Maybe the medication was messing with my head. Maybe grief and depression and whatever had driven me to that hospital bed was now making me hallucinate my dead mother's belongings. But that music box had felt real. The cold had felt real. And that voice, God, that voice had sounded exactly like her. I grabbed my phone and took photos of the music box from every angle. Proof. Evidence that I wasn't imagining things. The photos looked normal. Just an old music box sitting on a dresser. Nothing supernatural about it in the flat digital light. I got up and examined it more closely. Ran my fingers over the wood, looking for seams or hidden compartments. Opened and closed the lid. Wound the key and listened to it play again. That same off-key lullaby that made my chest ache with memory. It was real. Solid. Physical. But it couldn't be here. It had burned. I remembered the fire. Remembered my father carrying me out of the house. Remembered the flames. Remembered losing everything. So how was this here? I made a decision. In the morning, I'd ask Grandma. There had to be a rational explanation. There had to be. The next morning, I found Grandma in the kitchen making breakfast. The house smelled like coffee and cinnamon rolls, and through the window I could see snow falling softly on the quiet street. Christmas lights glowed on the neighbors' houses, and somewhere in the distance, church bells were ringing. It all looked so normal, so safe. I asked about the music box, described it in detail. The faded paint, the brass clasp, the lullaby it played. Her face went pale. The spatula clattered against the pan. She sat down heavily, hands shaking. "That was my mother's music box," she told me. My grandfather had given it to her. She'd kept it on her dresser, played it every night. It had burned in the fire. Everything had burned. The investigator said nothing survived from my parents' bedroom. The heat had been too intense. We sat in silence, both thinking the same thing. If it burned 13 years ago, how was it in my room last night? Grandma stood up suddenly. After the fire, she said, investigators had given her a box of personal effects recovered from other parts of the house. She'd never been able to open it. It was still in the attic. Maybe the music box had survived somehow. Maybe it had been in a different room that night. I needed to know. She nodded and led me upstairs. The attic was dark and cramped, smelling of dust and old wood and 13 years of accumulated silence. Grandma pulled the chain on a bare bulb, and boxes and furniture cast long shadows across the sloped ceiling. She pointed to a cardboard box in the corner. I knelt next to it, my heart pounding. The box was sealed with packing tape, yellowed with age. Written on the side in black marker, "Sarah's parents. Personal effects." My hands shook as I pulled the tape away. It came off in long strips, the adhesive crackling. Inside, photo albums with warped pages. My father's watch, the crystal cracked and the leather band stiff with age. My mother's jewelry box, tarnished and dented. Some clothes, still smelling of smoke even after all these years. No music box. I pulled everything out, checking the bottom of the box, searching for anything I might have missed. Nothing. The temperature dropped. My breath came out in a thick cloud. The bare bulb flickered once, twice. And I heard it again. That lullaby, playing from somewhere in the attic. Faint and distant, like it was coming from behind the walls. Grandma grabbed my arm, her grip painfully tight. I could see her breath too, could see the terror in her eyes. She heard it. She felt the cold. This wasn't just me. This was real. The music was getting louder, closer. The bulb flickered again, and in the strobing light I saw it. A figure standing in the corner behind the boxes. Small, female, wearing a blue dress I recognized. My mother's blue dress. The one she'd been wearing the night of the fire. The bulb went out completely. In the darkness, the music played, and I heard footsteps, light, deliberate, moving toward us across the attic floor. Grandma yanked my arm hard. We ran for the stairs. I didn't look back. Didn't want to see what was following us. We stumbled down into the hallway, and Grandma slammed the attic door shut, her hands shaking so badly she could barely turn the lock. We stood there in the bright hallway, breathing hard, staring at the closed door. I looked at her. She looked at me, and I knew. She'd heard it. She'd seen something in that corner. She'd felt that cold. I wasn't hallucinating. This wasn't the medication or my mind playing tricks. Something was in this house. Something that looked like my mother. Something that wanted us to know it was here. The question was, why? I spent the afternoon in my room with my laptop, researching. If something was haunting this house, haunting me, I needed to understand why. Needed to know what I was dealing with. I started with the fire. I'd been 7 when it happened, and my memories were fragmented, confused. Smoke and heat and terror. My father carrying me out of the house. going back in for my mother. The roof collapsing. I'd never read the actual reports, never wanted to know the details. It hurt too much. Now I needed to. I found the news articles easily. Family of 3 in house fire. Father and mother perish saving daughter. The headlines made my stomach turn, but I forced myself to keep reading. Most of it I knew. Electrical fire started around midnight. I'd been asleep. My father had gotten me out first, then gone back for my mother. But one article had details I didn't know. Details from the fire investigator's report. My father had gotten me out first, carried me to the front yard, told me to stay put. Then went back inside for my mother. But here's what I didn't know. My mother had already gotten out. She'd escaped through a bedroom window, was standing in the backyard, safe, when my father went back inside looking for her. She saw the house fully engulfed, heard my father calling her name from inside, and she ran back in after him. The roof collapsed 30 seconds later. They found their bodies together in the upstairs hallway. My mother had died trying to save my father, who died trying to save her, who died trying to save me. They'd both died because of me. I sat there staring at the screen, tears blurring the words, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. All these years, I'd thought it was just a tragedy. Bad luck. Wrong place. Wrong time. But they'd had a choice. They could have stayed safe, and they'd chosen to run into the fire instead. For each other. For me. That's when my laptop screen went black. Not off. Black. Like something was blocking the light. I looked up slowly. A figure stood between me and the window, silhouetted against the afternoon light streaming through the glass. My mother's shape, her height, the way she used to stand with one hip cocked, head tilted slightly. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there watching me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The figure raised one arm slowly, pointed at the window behind her. I looked past her, out at the snowy street. A man stood on the sidewalk across from the house. Tall, wearing a dark coat with the hood up, perfectly still, watching the house, watching me. When I looked back, my mother's figure was gone, just empty space and afternoon sunlight. I ran to the window, pressing my hands against the cold glass. The man was still there, motionless in the falling snow. I couldn't see his face, too far away, and the hood shadowed his features. But something about the way he stood, the way he watched, made my skin crawl. I grabbed my phone, started to dial 911, looked back out the window. He was gone. The sidewalk was empty. Fresh snow covered where he'd been standing. No footprints. Like he'd never been there at all. But my mother had seen him, had pointed him out, had warned me. I stood at the window, watching the empty street, and understood. Something was following me. Something was watching me. And whatever had appeared in the attic, whatever was leaving music boxes in my room, it wasn't the threat. It was trying to warn me about the real one. That evening, Grandma suggested we go to the Christmas market in town. I could see it in her eyes. She thought getting out of the house might be good for both of us. Some normalcy, some distraction from whatever was happening here. I didn't want to go, didn't want to leave the safety of walls and locks. Didn't want to be out in the open where that man, that thing, could find me. But I also couldn't explain about the figure on the street, about my dead mother pointing at him. Grandma would think I was losing my mind. Maybe I was, so I agreed. Maybe I was safer in a crowd anyway. Maybe whatever was following me wouldn't approach with witnesses around. I was wrong. Millbrook's Christmas market filled the town square with wooden stalls and twinkling lights. The smell of roasted chestnuts and pine filled the cold air. A brass band played carols near the big tree, and families wandered between the stalls, everyone bundled up and smiling. It was aggressively cheerful, almost painfully so. All these people with their normal lives, their normal problems, their normal Christmases. None of them being haunted by dead parents. None of them being followed by faceless things in the dark. Grandma stopped at a stall selling hand-knitted scarves, chatting with the vendor. I drifted away, hands shoved deep in my coat pockets, letting the crowd swallow me. That's when the temperature dropped. Not gradually, instantly. My breath came out in a thick cloud. The sounds around me muffled, like someone had stuffed cotton in my ears. And I felt it in my pocket, something that hadn't been there before. I pulled it out with shaking hands. A compass, old brass tarnished and scratched. The glass face was cracked, but the needle still moved, still pointed north. My father's compass, the one he'd carried everywhere, the one that had been in his pocket when he died. It was ice cold in my palm. Frost formed on the brass as I held it, delicate patterns spreading across the surface like frozen breath on a window. I watched the frost melt, watched the compass warm in my hand, and I knew, with absolute terrifying certainty, that I hadn't put this in my pocket. Someone else had. I looked up, searching the crowd with new fear, and I saw them, standing at the edge of the market, half hidden by a stall selling Christmas ornaments. My mother, my father, they looked exactly like I remembered. Mom in her blue winter coat, Dad in his leather jacket, their faces pale and familiar. But they weren't looking at me. They were looking past me, at something behind me, and their expressions, God, their expressions, they looked terrified. My mother's lips moved. I couldn't hear her, but I could read the word, run. I spun around. The man in the dark coat stood 10 feet away, closer than he'd been on the street. Close enough that I could see his face now. Except he didn't have a face. Where his features should have been, there was just smooth, pale skin. Like a mannequin. Like something wearing a person's shape, but not quite getting it right. And when he moved wrong, joints bending at angles that shouldn't work, like he was wearing a body but didn't quite understand how bodies moved. He tilted his head, studying me, and started walking toward me through the crowd. No one else seemed to see him. People walked past him, through the space where he should be, like he wasn't there. But he was there, and he was getting closer. I ran, pushed through the crowd, not caring who I shoved aside, heard Grandma calling my name behind me. Didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The faceless man followed. I could feel him behind me, could feel that unnatural cold radiating from him like winter itself had learned to walk. Could hear his footsteps matching mine, getting closer. I ducked into an alley between two shops. Dead end. Stupid. I spun around, my back against the brick wall. He stood at the alley entrance, blocking my escape. That blank face tilted, like he was curious, like he was enjoying this. He raised one hand toward me, and my father appeared between us. Not solid, translucent, flickering like a projection. But there, his leather jacket, his familiar stance, his broad shoulders, facing the faceless man. Protecting me one more time, the faceless man stopped, seemed to consider. Then slowly lowered his hand. He looked past my father's ghost, directly at me, and I heard a voice in my head. Not words exactly, but meaning that bypassed language. Not yet, but soon. Then he was gone. Just gone. Like smoke. Like he'd never been there at all. My father's ghost turned to look at me. His mouth moved, but I couldn't hear the words. Then he faded too, dissolving into the winter air like morning mist. I stood there shaking, my back against the cold brick wall, and understood. My parents weren't haunting me. They were guarding me from something that wanted me dead. Grandma drove us home in silence. I stared out the window, watching the snow fall, my mind racing. When we pulled into the driveway, she turned off the engine but didn't get out. Just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. Then she started talking about the fire, about something she'd never told me before. The investigators had ruled it electrical, faulty wiring. But my mother, before she died, she'd called 911. Grandma had heard the recording during the investigation. My mother had said someone was in the house, said someone had started the fire, said they were trying to kill me. The police had investigated, never found evidence of anyone else. Decided she was confused from the smoke, that the stress had made her paranoid. But Grandma's voice shook as she told me this, and I could see it in her eyes. She'd never believed that explanation. She'd always wondered, what if my mother hadn't been confused? What if someone really had been trying to kill me that night? What if my parents had died protecting me from something? And what if that something was still here? I looked at her. She looked at me. And we both knew. 13 years ago, something had tried to kill me. My parents had died stopping it. And now, after I'd almost finished what it started in that hospital bed, it was back to complete the job. We ran for the house, got inside, locked the doors. Grandma's hands shook as she turned the deadbolt. She started to say we should call the police, but I stopped her. What would we tell them? That a faceless man who doesn't exist was hunting me? That my dead parents were trying to protect me? They'd put me back in the hospital. They'd think I was losing my mind. The lights went out. All of them. The whole house plunged into darkness. I called out for Grandma. Her voice came from near the kitchen. She thought the breaker had tripped. The temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath in the darkness. And I smelled it. Not lavender and vanilla this time. Something else. Something rotten and wrong. Like meat left out in the sun. Like decay and darkness. And things that should stay buried. I whispered that he was inside. A sound from upstairs. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate. Coming down the stairs. I grabbed Grandma's arm, pulled her toward the back door. My fingers fumbled with the deadbolt, numb with cold and fear. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. The deadbolt clicked. I yanked the door open. The faceless man stood in the doorway, outside, blocking our escape. We backed away. He stepped inside and the door swung shut behind him with a soft click. We were trapped. He moved toward us, and that cold moved with him. My lungs burned with each breath. Grandma was shaken beside me, or maybe I was shaken. Maybe both. He raised both hands toward me, and I felt it. Something pulling at me. Not physical. Deeper. Like he was reaching into my chest and pulling at something essential. Pulling at my life itself. The room started to fade. My vision darkening at the edges, my legs giving out. This was it. This was how I died. How I'd always been meant to die. And part of me, the part that had landed me in that hospital bed, that had wanted everything to stop, felt almost relieved. Then light blazed through the darkness. My mother appeared between us and the faceless man, solid this time, not translucent, glowing with soft light that pushed back the shadows. My father materialized beside her, just as solid, just as bright. They stood together, facing the thing that had killed them, protecting me one more time. The faceless man stopped, seemed to grow larger, darker. The cold intensified until I thought my lungs would freeze. My parents didn't move, didn't back down, and I realized they couldn't fight this thing. Not really. They could only delay it, slow it down, but they couldn't stop it. Only I could do that. I stepped forward, moving around my parents' glowing forms. Grandma screamed my name, but I kept moving. I understood now. Understood what this thing was. Why it had come for me 13 years ago. Why it was here now. I'd tried to die. Had wanted to die. Had opened a door in myself that let dark things in. Things that fed on despair, on self-destruction, on the desire to stop existing. This thing hadn't just been trying to kill me. It had been trying to claim me. And when I'd done what I'd done in that hospital, I'd almost let it. I spoke to it, told it that it couldn't have me. Not then, not now, not ever. The faceless man tilted his head, and I felt that voice in my mind again, cold and patient. You invited me. You wanted this. You wanted to stop. I agreed. I had wanted everything to end, but I was wrong. I looked at my parents, at their faces I'd almost forgotten, faces I'd thought I'd never see again. They'd died protecting me, had stayed, even in death, to keep protecting me. And I'd almost thrown that away, almost wasted the life they'd given everything to save. I said it again, louder. I was wrong. I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. I wanted to get better. I wanted to make their sacrifice mean something. The faceless man moved toward me, reached out with those blank, terrible hands. I didn't run, didn't back away. I told it that it couldn't have me, because I wasn't giving up. Not anymore. The compass was in my pocket, my father's compass. I pulled it out, held it up. The needle spun wildly, then stopped, pointing not north, but at my parents' glowing forms. I told it that they'd shown me the way. They always had, and I was following it. Back to life, back to the world. Away from it. Light blazed from the compass. From upstairs where the music box sat in my room. From my parents themselves. Growing brighter and brighter until the whole house was filled with light. The faceless man recoiled. That cold retreated. He was fading, dissolving, the light burning him away like morning sun burning off fog. I felt his voice in my head one last time, distant now, already half gone. This isn't over. I told him yes. It was. He vanished. The lights came back on. The cold disappeared. The house was just a house again. My parents stood there looking at me. My mother smiled. That smile I remembered from childhood, warm and proud and full of love. My father nodded once, a gesture that said, "You did good, kid." Then they faded too. Gently this time. Peacefully. Like they could finally rest. Like they knew I'd be okay. Grandma and I stood in the kitchen, breathing hard, staring at the space where they'd been. She asked if that had really just happened. I told her yes. I thought it had. We were quiet for a long moment. Then Grandma pulled me into a hug, and I let myself cry. Not from fear this time, from relief, from grief, from gratitude, from being alive. The next morning, I called the therapist the hospital had set me up with, made an appointment for after Christmas. Started taking my medication regularly, setting alarms so I wouldn't forget. It wasn't easy. Some days I still felt that weight, that darkness pressing down. Some days I still thought about how peaceful it had felt to let go. But on those days I'd touch the compass in my pocket, or wind the music box that now sat on my dresser, real and solid and permanent. And I'd remember, my parents had died to give me life, had stayed, even in death, to protect that life, had fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. The least I could do was keep living, keep fighting, keep finding my way home. Christmas came. Grandma and I decorated the tree together, made cookies, watched old movies. It wasn't the Christmas I'd imagined. It was better. It was real. On Christmas morning, I found a present under the tree I didn't recognize. No tag. Just a small box wrapped in blue paper. My mother's favorite color. Inside, a photograph I'd never seen before. My parents and me, when I was maybe 5 years old. We were laughing, caught in some moment of joy I couldn't remember but could feel. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, even when it's dark, we're here. I put the photo next to the music box on my dresser, and I knew, whatever darkness came, whatever struggles lay ahead, I wouldn't face them alone. I never had been.